British Future held an event on whether there is a new patriotism in 2012. On the panel were MP Kwasi Kwarteng, Isabel Hardman of The Spectator and Sander Katwala of British Future.
I think policy is very important in shaping national identity. And I think, I have quite a traditional view about this, that probably the best way to do that is to get a chronological sense, not only of British history, but the wider history. And I've written a book about empire. I still read and write a lot about imperial and Commonwealth issues. And I'm shocked, actually, the extent to which people don't know about the empire. They don't know about the legacies of the Commonwealth. And it's very much a niche area. And I think that some sort of more traditional, chronological, if you like, approach to history, understanding why we are the country we are, why people from other countries, other continents have come here, I think that's very important.
I think the point on talking about empire is interesting because I think we shouldn't be ashamed of it anymore, but I think one of the ways, I sound like I'm writing for Women's Magazine here, but one of the ways of sort of overcoming guilt is by talking about things. And I think actually, as Kwasi said, actually the fact that empire was silent in the opening ceremony was, I suppose, a function of it being a very cheerful performance, but actually our schools do need to tell our children the story of empire rather than remaining silent on it the whole time. So I think if it becomes part of the national conversation, then it doesn't become a problem because it's not something that we don't talk about in this chat today.
And I think part of the sort of Danny Boyle trick was to have a thread from the history through to the future that was distinctly British. So it's not that London is a sort of the most multi-ethnic city in the world because it's escaped from British history entirely. It's because London reflects the history of Britain, the history of empire, the history of decolonisation and Commonwealth. But it's also quite interesting that that was the bit that was left out. Mo Farah kicking on the final bend doesn't tell you much about the balance between, citizenship, common citizenship, diverse identity. Jessica Ennis tells you absolutely nothing about multiculturalism. I mean, you read her biography, as I've been doing recently, and find out what it says about multiculturalism, because there isn't a sense that she's got different cultures. She's just the reality of a mixed-race girl from Sheffield who grew up in the 1980s and the world that she's coming to. And actually, so I think a lot of those discourses are quite out of date now if you talk to 20-somethings about how they experience it, because they're not experiencing it as the sort of difficult challenge of them and us difference. They're just experiencing it as the country they've grown up in. And they think
that was actually the Jubilee and the Royal Wedding were big occasions where I know there was a lot of spending on Kate's dress and that sort of thing, but actually that was a much more grassroots occasion and it had the same effect of bringing communities together. For instance, my parents have lived in the same race since 2006, but it was only on the Royal Wedding when they had a street party they actually met their neighbours. They loved it so much that they repeated it this year for the Jubilee. So actually these events are really important, not just for sort of multicultural integration, but actually just to get people talking to each other. So